In a faraway land, nestled between towering mountains and a vast open plain, there was a village that lived in harmony with nature. The villagers believed that the wind carried the voices of the spirits, whispering secrets and ancient wisdom to those who would listen. This belief was passed down through generations, and each child grew up learning to listen to the wind, to feel its presence, and to understand its messages. But there was one girl, Elara, who could hear the wind more clearly than anyone else. From a young age, she could decipher the whispers that others could only vaguely sense. The villagers marveled at her gift, but they also feared it, for the wind's messages were not always kind. Elara, however, did not fear the wind. She spent her days wandering the fields and climbing the hills, letting the wind guide her steps. It was during one of these wanderings that she first heard a voice, clearer and stronger than any she had heard before. It called her by name, beckoning her to follow. Elara felt a pull deep within her soul, and she knew she had to obey. She followed the voice, letting it lead her through the fields and up into the mountains. The path was steep and treacherous, but Elara was determined. As she climbed higher, the voice grew louder, more insistent. It spoke of a great task that lay ahead, of a truth that she must discover. The wind whipped around her, carrying the voice with it, and Elara felt a sense of urgency. She climbed through the night, her breath coming in ragged gasps as she pushed herself to the limit. Finally, as the first light of dawn broke over the horizon, Elara reached the summit. There, at the very top of the mountain, she found a small ancient shrine. It was old and weathered, its stones covered in moss and lichen, but it held a power that Elara could feel deep within her bones. The wind howled around her, swirling in a vortex as if it were alive. Elara stepped forward, her heart pounding in her chest. The voice spoke again, telling her that the shrine held the key to her destiny, but only if she was willing to face the truth. With trembling hands, Elara touched the shrine. Immediately, the wind stopped, and a deep silence fell over the mountain. The world seemed to hold its breath, waiting. Elara closed her eyes, letting the silence wash over her. When she opened them again, she saw something she had never seen before. Before her stood a figure, made entirely of wind and light. It was neither man nor woman, young nor old. It was the wind itself, given form and voice. The figure looked at Elara with eyes that held the wisdom of ages. "You have been chosen," it said, "to carry the truth of the wind to your people." Elara felt a weight settle on her shoulders. The wind had always been her guide, her friend. But now it was asking something of her that she wasn't sure she could give. "What truth?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. The figure gestured to the shrine. "The truth that lies within," it replied. Elara knew what she had to do. She stepped closer to the shrine, her heart heavy with the responsibility she had been given. The shrine seemed to pulse with energy, as if it were alive, waiting for her to unlock its secrets. With a deep breath, she placed her hands on the stone. Immediately, a vision flooded her mind. She saw the village, her home, but it was different. The fields were barren, the rivers dry, and the skies dark with storm clouds. The villagers were fearful, huddled together as they tried to protect themselves from the harsh winds that tore through the land. And then she saw herself, standing in the center of the village, the wind swirling around her. She held something in her hands, something that glowed with a brilliant light. The light grew stronger, pushing back the darkness, and the winds calmed. The vision faded, and Elara was left standing before the shrine, her heart pounding. She understood now. The wind had chosen her to bring hope to her people, to guide them through the storm that was coming. But it wouldn't be easy. She would have to face the fears and doubts of the villagers, to convince them that the wind was not their enemy, but their ally. The figure watched her silently, waiting. Elara took a deep breath, feeling the strength of the wind fill her. "I will do it," she said, her voice firm. The figure nodded, and then, like a breeze, it dissolved into the air. Elara stood alone on the mountain, the weight of her task heavy on her shoulders. But she knew she wasn't truly alone. The wind would be with her, guiding her every step. As she began her descent, the wind picked up again, whispering in her ear, offering words of encouragement. She knew the journey ahead would be difficult, but she was ready. The wind had given her a purpose, and she would see it through. When she returned to the village, the storm was already brewing on the horizon. The villagers looked to her, their faces filled with fear. But Elara stood tall, the wind at her back, and began to speak. She told them of the wind's message, of the task she had been given, and of the hope that still burned bright. And as she spoke, the winds began to calm, and a light broke through the clouds. And as she spoke, the winds began to calm, and a light broke through the clouds. The storm was far from over, but with Elara's guidance, the village would weather it. For the wind was not just a force of nature, it was a force of hope, of truth, and of light. And Elara was its chosen messenger. If you've ever felt a calling to something greater, now is the time to listen. I've created a guide that can help you find your purpose. Silent Success, YouTube Automation Mastery. This guide will help you discover your potential and turn it into reality, just as Elara did. You can find the link in the description and in my bio. Visit my link to discover how you can find your truth, unlock your potential, and walk the path that's meant for you. Your journey begins with a single step. Take it today.